All righty. Well, thank you so much for joining this SEEC Forum Lightning Round session trailer. I'm Leif Christensen, the statewide local government energy efficiency coordinator, and I'm your host today for this webinar. With the annual SEEC Forum next week, we decided to schedule this webinar to assist you in that painful process of deciding which 4 of the 16 amazing breakout sessions you will attend this year. This is an annual challenge, and our hope with this webinar, it'll make your decision-making process a little easier, with the hope that you are able to maximize your time at the forum and make it as beneficial to you and your community as possible. So thanks for being on this call. It is a bit of an experiment, and we're going to be as efficient as we can with our time here. We've asked a representative from each of the breakout sessions to give an elevator pitch for their session to better inform you of what to expect and hopefully make your decision-making process a little easier. And we're intending to, we're giving each presenter just 3 minutes, so this really is a quick pitch. Presenters, you will hear a chime. We'll do a test chime here. That is the indicator. That's your 30-second warning. So you don't have to stop right then, but yeah, that's a note that you should start wrapping it up. And after we complete presentations from each of the 4 sessions in a session block, we'll set aside about 5 minutes for Q&A from the audience. So a couple things with Zoom. One is that since we do have a fair amount of people on the call today, we're going to be using the Zoom Q&A function that you can see at the bottom of your screen within that. So if you have a question for one of the panelists, just type in your question, and then we'll go over those during that 5-minute window after we finish a session block. So we'll have 4 session blocks, obviously 4 breakouts per session. And presenters, I want to remind you that before you present, please unmute yourself. So everyone's muted right now, so you can just manually mute yourself before you give your pitch. So that's the plan. Helen, anything else you need to cover?
No.
Okay, great. Excellent. So I think we're ready to get started. So we're going to move on with our first slide and just to, I think as we know, 26, the forum starts at 1 p.m. sharp, and we have 2 blocks of breakout sessions the first day and 2 blocks the second day. So we'll start now with the first block, and first out of the gate is Rich Chen from SF Environment, San Francisco Environment, who is representing the session, Chasing the Twin Goals of Carbon Reduction and Racial Equity. Take it away, Rich.
Thanks, Leif. Can everyone hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. I'm going to try to live up to the task of giving the elevator pitch for this session in a very short amount of time. So in short, for about the last year and a half, San Francisco, along with about 9 other cities, have been part of a project called Zero Cities that was funded by the Carbon Neutral Cities Alliance. And all of the cities in this cohort have very aggressive emission reduction goals as stated policy, and they include cities such as Seattle, Portland, Boulder, Boston, New York, DC, and a few others. And the work is focused on how to help support those emission reduction goals in the building sector specifically, And there are a set of services that were provided to each of the cities to provide technical and community engagement and racial equity assistance to help the cities with their customized approaches on how to develop policies and programs to reduce emissions in the building sector. On that team, well, actually, I'll just kind of talk about the San Francisco project. There are a few things that each city was going to get support for, looking at model reach codes, doing building sector analysis to understand where all of the energy consumption and emissions were coming from, and being able to project out into the future to inform planning around what policies and programs might make sense in order to catalyze emissions reductions. And then, as I mentioned earlier, consultants on the core team were able to provide support to help develop community engagement strategies, to have conversations with community about potential building sector policies, and to help understand what the racial and social equity considerations were for any potential building sector policies. So San Francisco has come up with its own approach to accessing and utilizing these tools. We are in the process of updating our climate action strategy, which will be done early part of 2020. And because buildings are such a big portion of the city's emissions, this work is really teeing up what new actions in the built environment will be included in the climate action strategy. I guess that's my beep. So on the panel will be myself giving an overview of the project as a whole and how it ties in with the climate plan that we're developing. My colleague Ammon Reagan will talk about the building sector assessment and segmentation analysis, which takes a deeper look at building sector emissions with the ability to project forward. And then Leah Obias from Race Forward is one of our core consultants, will talk about some tools that are available. And these are tools that could be used by any jurisdiction to understand what stakeholders can help with community engagement, and to go over a equity assessment tool that was specifically designed to look at building sector policies at the city level. And then Chris Selig from PODER is one of our anchor partners, which we'll describe in our session is how we're leveraging existing community partners for the broader engagement around the work.
All right, Rich, thank you. Your time is up. Thank you for your pitch. We are going to move on now to Kathleen Egan at Ecomedes. Ecomedes for talking about the session, catalyzing decarbonization and market transformation through procurement.
Hi, everybody. Yep, good afternoon. My name is Kathleen. I come from Ecomedes, and I'm presenting with Brian Barnacle from Energy Solutions. We are also working on the building sector. And in looking at the future of energy, you know, we have things on the renewables and transmission side, and then the energy efficiency side. So we're working on the energy efficiency side. And what we see is that really breaks down into some pretty radical, big changes that require you know, a lot of research and policy change. And then also the other side of it is ongoing comprehensive decisions that are being made today. And that's where the solution that we're looking at sits, because procurement is happening every day in every town and every state, and things that are being bought affect the way the building performs from an energy standpoint. So we're working on a solution. We're going to share some data on buyer and manufacturer surveys that we worked on with the California Energy Commission about what is hard in terms of buying more energy efficient stuff. And it takes into account the culture, the data required, and the processes that are necessary. And then the tool that we're customizing from my company, and we're customizing it for the CEC, is something that would be available to anybody coming to this. That's a very practical, pick it up today and start having impact right away tool. So the categories for us are things like lighting controls, electronics, appliances, anything that affects the draw of power into a building. And everybody's buildings can get better immediately based on procurement, and it can even move the market. So as more sustainable things are purchased, the manufacturers create and design even more sustainable products. So we are moving the market through procurement, and what you'll take away from this session is a very practical, hands-on tool that you could start using right away.
Excellent. Thank you for that brief and concise pitch. I think we'll move on to our next presenter. And before I do that, I wanted to remind folks that if you do have any questions you want to ask, we're going to have time after the next presenter to, and be sure to post your question in the Q&A section of Zoom. Down at the bottom, you'll see the link. All right, thanks. So Sean Orgel Olson from California Green Business Network will now talk about the public-private partnerships promoting energy efficiency, green business programs, and incentives.
Great, thank you. Hopefully everyone can hear me just fine. So what this session is really going to do is we're going to start with an introduction of what the California Green Business Network is. We're going to talk about the number of programs, 38 across the state, the different industry sectors that we're working in. And we'll also talk about the technical assistance that we provide primarily to small to medium-sized businesses. And part of that is now a new direct rebate program that we have. It's kind of filling a gap where the IOUs and Energy Watch programs have dropped off, especially for the micro businesses. We'll be talking about seed funding that we have available to start new programs in new jurisdictions. And you'll be able to hear directly from the City of Long Beach, one of our newest and really a star program, about how starting a green business program has helped them reach their climate goals, have a kind of proactive, voluntary approach to sustainability with the business community. And just, you'll hear, they just have a really great team. So I think getting to hear from Courtney is going to be awesome for everybody. You'll also get to preview some of the marketing and outreach techniques that we've been implementing and how those relate to energy efficiency messaging. And Laura is going to be joining us from Energy Upgrade California. We'll talk a little about the partnership that we have with them and what we've achieved with that. So really concise, short summary, but very excited for next week.
Excellent. All right, so we do have one additional session. It's not represented in a pitch, but at least want to call it out. It's the regional leadership to support local action in disadvantaged communities. And we'll, as a resource, please refer to the program, the draft schedule for the SEEC forum, which is available on the website. And that will give full descriptions to this and all other sessions that are going to be available through the forum. So we're now, we've completed the first session block, and we're now moving on to Q&A. So any questions you have for the three presenters you just heard from, please post your questions in the Q&A section of Zoom, and we'll give folks just a minute just to gather your thoughts if you have any questions. All right. I'm not seeing any questions, so I'll take that as the pitches were convincing, and you feel like you have all the information you need to decide which of those four you will decide to go to. So we're going to move on to the session block 2 now, and with so first up with session block 2, we are going to hear about the TRC for the rest of us. That's the total resource cost, breaking down cost effectiveness. And Nicole Manzanares from the Energy Coalition will be giving the pitch on this session. Go ahead, Nicole.
Great, Lee. Thanks so much, and hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Manzanares, yes, with the Energy Coalition, and it's really a great pleasure to be facilitating a conversation among experts related to the TRC. And for those of you who don't know the acronym, TRC is the Total Resource Cost Test, and it is a cost-benefit analysis utilized by the California Public Utilities Commission to evaluate energy programs across the state. So this is a back-to-basics session, if you will, that unpacks this really core cost-effectiveness metric, which governs energy efficiency ratepayer-funded programs across the state and guides portfolio decisions being made by the utilities and other program administrators, so even things like regional energy networks, or RENs, and community choice aggregators, or CCAs. And I've got to say, I'm an energy efficiency practitioner, but I actually consider myself a novice when it comes to cost effectiveness. But it's so essential to the conversation surrounding the evolution of energy efficiency programs and just the future in general. So if you were at SEEC last year, as I was, the TRC was all abuzz. And this is because the CPUC's ruling related to the energy efficiency portfolio's business plan had recently been shared. And that included a very alarming declaration that resource programs within the portfolio would be required to meet a TRC of 1.0 in order to be approved in future years. So I think it's safe to say that most people have a sense as to the challenge of meeting this requirement if you are involved as a stakeholder in any of these programs, as an implementer, or maybe as a participant. But for the audience out here, I want to pose a question. Do you understand the TRC calculation itself? And do you fully understand why, or really how it impacts you? So if there's any hesitation at all in answering that question for yourself, then our panel is for you, and here's what we're covering. So we'll kick things off and shake out the nuts and bolts of the equation, and the goal is for participants to better understand the individual inputs that go into the TRC equation, so costs and benefits and really avoided costs from some of those actions, and then we'll discuss the program design elements that have the largest impact on TRC, so really talking about the drivers of these equations, so to speak. We'll talk about some of the limitations, and finally, expanding on the limitations, we'll talk about some of the perspectives that aren't really factored in at all. So if we're successful, you'll walk out of our session with a better grasp of what goes into the equation and be better equipped to articulate the impacts of cost effectiveness policies on energy efficiency programs, and again, essential for all stakeholders, whether you're an administrator or an implementer or maybe a local government participant in programs. And my final note is that our session is a fabulous 101 segment that you can couple with Thursday's free ridership session that highlights the public sector voice. So more from that on our panel, or my panelist, Lou Jacobson, in a little bit as well. And that's all from me.
The tag team pitch, that was great. That was a great segue.
Thanks. I hope it works.
All righty. Thank you. All right. Up next, putting action into your climate action plan, energy master planning. We're going to hear from Carly Zimmerman-Fogg from Terra Verde Energy.
Hi there. Thanks. So we understand that it can be a significant challenge to translate into action the ambitious greenhouse gas emission reduction goals that local government agencies have in their climate action plans. So in our session called Putting Action into Your Climate Action Plan, Energy Master Planning, we're going to talk about how Energy Master Planning addresses the climate action plan implementation gap by mapping emissions reduction goals onto clear and actionable energy project implementation plans. What Energy Master Planning does is it provides a roadmap for identifying, for planning, implementing, monitoring, and evaluating and tracking the impacts of high value energy projects. So we understand it can be hard to proactively address the energy demands and inefficiencies of public agency facilities. However, energy is a recurring long-term expense, so engaging proactively really pays off. And the other thing motivating this session is that, you know, we understand that many public agencies feel that it's important to, quote unquote, practice what you preach, or model for citizens how to reduce energy consumption and implement clean energy projects. So this is an interactive session, and it's going to explore the 5 steps of energy master planning and how the energy master planning process optimizes public agencies' existing assets, how it identifies cost-effective energy generation opportunities, generates predictable savings over time, insulates you from energy cost volatility and helps you control your energy costs, helps you to take advantage of energy opportunities, and increases resiliency. So you're going to hear from the City of Woodland, who will share their climate action planning process to date and how they've identified a need for the comprehensive strategic implementation approach of energy master planning. You'll also hear from us at Terra Verde Energy. We're independent energy advisors who have helped numerous public agencies with energy project planning and implementation. And you'll also hear from a representative of the California Energy Commission funded Cal OP ACE project, which was mentioned in one of the first sessions. It's the California Opportunities for Procurement to Accelerate Clean Energy project, and they're going to present on best practices in advanced clean energy technology procurement. So in this session, we really look forward to exploring with you how you can most effectively bridge your climate action plans with implementation. So you'll also learn about how to model for your citizens projects at your facilities that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, how to generate predictable savings over time, and how to increase your resiliency. So that's it, and thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.
Thanks, Carly. All right, next up is Rachel Stern from the Port of San Diego, and she'll be talking about fueling energy conservation and efficiency through gamification.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. So what does a vampire, a port, a hotel, a yacht club, and a marina, and a convention center, and even a manufacturing facility all have in common? You're probably thinking not much, but actually all of these parties participated in campaigns this past year to help educate and engage employees in energy conservation and efficiency measures, all through gamification. So we held 6 separate behavioral change campaigns in the San Diego area, and there were many similarities but also differences between each of these campaigns. They were funded through SDG&E's local government partnership, and you might be wondering why a behavioral change campaign could be so important. And according to the Department of Energy, employee engagement and behavioral change can help organizations achieve savings of actually 10% or more, so it's quite significant. And during this session, we'll have panelists from the Center for Sustainable Energy, the Energy Coalition, and the San Diego Convention Center, and the panelists will go into detail about the various gamification campaigns that were held this year. They'll highlight barriers, some lessons learned, campaign survey results, success stories of each of the campaigns, and also provide panel attendees with some best practices. Attendees will learn some of the differences between an online and web-based platform for the campaigns, some of the factors that led to 100% participation, some of the challenges that may arise, and how to adapt the program on a moment's notice. We'll go into detail about the ideal length of the campaign, some of the curriculum topics that can be covered. We'll also discuss ways to get participants to take energy efficiency and conservation actions either through paper cards and game boards or online by uploading photos to gain points. And during this panel discussion, we'll also be doing an activity with all participants to help everyone better understand how these campaigns can actually work. So participants will learn how to slay energy vampires, and of course, there will be prizes. So in the end, it's our goal that these participants in the session get inspired to test out similar behavioral change campaigns with your employees to help you reach your sustainability goals. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so up next is Hal Nelson from Portland State University, and the session is Energize, a municipal residential energy efficiency competition.
Great, thanks, Leif, and welcome everybody. It's really it's great to see all the amazing panels that are lined up, and thanks for putting on this little pitch session. So, Energize. What we're going to be talking about in our session is projects we've been working on for the last, well, several projects over the last 5 years with 3 different California investor-owned utilities to develop different analytical tools. And we've integrated all these into a program for local governments that can to utilize to meet their climate action plans and equity and economic development goals. We think about this as kind of a first responder capability for the 600 jurisdictions that have declared a climate emergency. And it's based on the fact that municipalities tend to have very little direct authority to improve the efficiency of their building stock, and it's hard for them to geo-target, disadvantaged and hard to reach communities to reduce energy burdens or for economic development reasons. So, what is Energize? Well, first and foremost, it's a competition. It's driven by big data analytics, and we do a mass scale benchmarking for the single and multifamily residential sectors. So each residence gets a 1 to 100 score, and about how they use energy, as well as customized conservation recommendations based on the analytics. And that provides information about how they use energy and how their peers use energy for a peer comparison. And then there's a series of, using that benchmarking information, then there's a series of friendly competitions that occur for cities to retrofit their residences, both single and multifamily. So these competitions can be customized, for each jurisdiction, but they can be across cities. So you could have Berkeley versus Oakland, or you could have school districts competing within a city. So there's prizes for that, and then there's also to engage the peer networks. We also have a competition amongst the neighborhood, what they call neighborhood champions, to recruit participants. And then we use community-based social marketing to cost-effectively gain participation. And that's managed through marketing automation software. And this is a modern marketing tool that businesses use to engage and entertain customers. And the bottom line is we can increase participation, from about 0.5% up to, over 20, 25%. And then the final element is the EM&V 2.0, where we can monetize energy savings on the back end and provide additional source of program revenue. So what's different? Well, it's advanced analytics. We leverage existing utilities. We build community. One of the projects we did for SoCal Gas and SoCal Edison was a competition among apartment complexes. And the apartment complexes were competing for $2,500 in Energy Star prizes. But imagine if they were instead competing for 50 Lakers tickets. That would really bring the communities together and give them a common goal.
All right,
so
thanks Al.
Okay, thanks so much.
Sorry. Yeah. All right, so that completes the session block number 2, which is the second breakout session grouping on Wednesday. And again, that's 4:15 to 5:30. We now have some time for Q&A. There is one question that's been posted. Feel free to post additional ones. But it's about the definition of gamification. And the question reads, gamification, as in we have people play video games to help save energy? So if we could provide a little more insight, Rachel, on what is your definition of gamification and how that kind of fits into your session.
Yeah, thanks, Anna, for the question. Unfortunately, no, we don't have video games on energy efficiency yet, but that's a great idea. So in this context, the gamification is really a competition, and there's both an online platform that has multiple videos, an online curriculum, and social media visual posting for pictures, and then the in-person platforms, really game boards and action cards and little mascots for game pieces as well. But that's a great idea moving forward. I hope that clarifies the gamification in this context.
And Hal, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, given yours touches on gamification a bit.
Yeah, so we use some gamification tools as well. There's really not one commonly accepted definition of gamification, but you can think about it, especially if you have kids that play Fortnite, about the way we use it is having kind of a status for participation. So you can level up by doing different things and get prizes through that. So I think that's maybe a simpler way or another way of looking at it.
Great. Any other questions before we move on to our next session block? All right, I'm not seeing any in the Q&A section in Zoom. So again, if you joined us late for some reason, make sure you use that link at the bottom of your Zoom screen, Q&A, to post any questions you have. All right, we'll move on to session block 3. So this is the first session Thursday morning, and we'll be starting off with a session about regional energy networks. So RENs, lessons learned, and the future of energy efficiency. So Laura Rothschild from the Energy Coalition will be providing the pitch for the session.
Yes, thanks, Leif. So, hi, many of you are likely familiar with local government partnerships. They are administered by the utilities. But have you wanted to know more about what it would be like to be a local government that actually administers their own EE programs? If so, I invite you to come join us on the first breakout session of Thursday morning to hear about how the 3 regional energy networks, or RENs, across the state address key gaps in the energy efficiency marketplace and serve residential, business, and public sector customers that have traditionally been underserved. I will start the conversation Thursday morning by covering a bit of the history about how RENs got their start and what is currently under consideration for new RENs that are looking to form. After that, Jenny Berg will speak about the Bay Regional or Bay REN, and then followed by Luana Medina from SoCal REN, and Alejandra Taliz on the newest REN, 3C REN. Each of them will speak about their vision as a REN, their unique suite of programs, lessons learned, and also what they hope to accomplish in the future as a REN. Each of them will also touch on their collaborations with local government partnerships and CCAs, as additional CCAs join across the state. And these existing RENs will also touch about how other local governments could possibly implement a similar model or propose their own REN. We really hope you join us to hear from these local government leaders and how they are navigating the challenging, very challenging regulatory landscape to administer portfolios of EE programs and fold in innovations to go beyond the traditional EE programs of yesterday and today. So as a reminder, the panel is RENs, Lesson Learned, and the Future of Energy Efficiency. And it looks here, we have an assigned room now. So Salon A, come join us, Salon A. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, the next session, we're going to be hearing about the revolving loan funds in the post-incentive world, and also from Energy Coalition, Gennaro Bulgarin, and you can correct my pronunciation there for everyone.
Gennaro, that's fine. Genaro would be the other way. Okay, so I'll start with a question or two. So how many of you have a dedicated pool of money to develop and implement energy efficiency projects? I mean, actually a cash set aside where you actually worry about finding projects to implement rather than fighting for budgets and where you worry about spending down that money. Probably I'm not speaking to many, but so maybe I'll ask a different question. Do you know what it's like to compete for funds through the budgetary process every year or every per year. I think that probably rings the bell with more people that are listening and looking to consider whether they're coming to this session or not. So this year, I'm excited to be moderating a panel that touches on financing, that touches on building a resilient and sustainable mechanism to develop and implement energy and sustainable projects. This is all happening Thursday the 27th, the second day of the conference at 10 in the morning. So do not miss our session titled Revolving Loan Funds in a Post-Incentive World. You can't afford not to be there. You'll hear from representatives of the County of San Luis Obispo, the City of Santa Barbara, and the County of Los Angeles. You'll hear their stories, learn from their successes, and yes, from their challenges as well. Annie Secrets from the County of San Luis Obispo will speak to the process and the stakeholder coordination that is required and needed for getting an RLF set up, revolving loan fund set up within the agency. Alelia Planteo of the City of Santa Barbara will share with all of you some great insights from having a revolving loan fund, the successes and the best practices of having such a fund. And she's one of those that now has a pot of cash and is worried about spending it down, right? And then lastly, our third panelist is Matt Skolnick from the County of Los Angeles. And from him, you will hear about the county's internal RLF, revolving loan fund, but also Matt will share how to leverage a financing program that is part of the Southern California Regional Energy Network public agency programs, appropriately called the Revolving Loan Fund Program. Your call for action then is to highlight or bookmark or send yourself a text or however you want to remember this session. You want to be part of it. So come and get some insights, be part of the dialogue. We hope that you're inspired to create or be part of the process of exploring a revolving loan fund. And if you already have one, we hope that you learn a thing or two about how to maximize that revolving loan fund within your agency. And we hope that you can go from competing for funds every year to having a dedicated pot of cash that you then have to worry about spending down. That's it.
Awesome.
All right.
All righty. So the last pitch we'll hear from the session block is involving electric vehicles. So it's addressing barriers to EVI deployment in disadvantaged communities. And we have Kevin Wood from the Center for Sustainable Energy.
Thank you. So the EVI acronym is Electric Vehicle Infrastructure. Our session is a little different than a lot of the sessions since electric vehicle infrastructure isn't something that is necessarily a normal SEEC topic, because when we're talking about putting in electric vehicle infrastructure, we're actually increasing the electric load and maybe taking advantage of all the decreasing load that every other program is working on. But we do have the same end goal in mind in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, not by displacing electricity consumption, but by displacing petroleum-based fuel production. And the state goals that govern energy efficiency, a lot of those the same legislation as well as other state goals have parallel goals for electric vehicle deployment. And the reason why we're at SEEC is we think the disadvantaged communities are a big target, and the strategies that we can use to engage with disadvantaged communities around electric vehicle infrastructure are strategies that are relevant to engaging the communities around energy efficiency as well. So our panel is going to be kind of interactive and solution oriented, and we're going to be, with the folks in the room, we'll be sharing what the barriers and solutions we identified, and we want to hear from the audience, and we'll have some live interactive tools to engage with the audience to see how you rank barriers and solutions to energy efficiency in your community, and what can we learn from each other. And we think local governments have a huge role to play in being champions for both energy efficiency as well as for electric vehicle infrastructure. And it just so happens that often the same staff member in cities working in a sustainability department might be the same folks who get to work on EE as well as EV, and that's the case with our panelists, Linda Urata from the Kern Council of Governments, who works on the Regional Energy Watch program, as well as working with us on the electric vehicle infrastructure planning, and then Christine Vitarelli from the city of Arvin, as a small disadvantaged city in Kern County, is not what people think of when they think of kind of innovative and successful electric vehicle deployments, but Christine's been a great champion in her city, getting a lot of resources and really getting her community engaged and excited around electric vehicles, and getting a lot of funding for her city as well. And then Envoy Technologies is, which will have Jack Axelrod as a speaker. They're a provider of electric vehicle infrastructure and car sharing, and they offer solutions both for market rate properties that can be apartments or businesses, as well as for disadvantaged communities, and operating with some different state funding programs are able to offer kind of car sharing and EV infrastructure solutions to affordable housing complexes and to others in disadvantaged communities. So we're going to hear about the strategies from all these folks on how they've engaged with stakeholders on electric vehicles, and we're going to take the lessons learned from that and hopefully apply those to energy efficiency. And with live input from the audience, we'll come out with a kind of prioritized list of strategies and implementation actions you can take in your region whenever you're trying to engage on energy or on transportation electrification with your communities.
All righty. Thanks for that. I do want to note we have a fourth session that on local energy codes, tools for reaching your climate action goals. And we don't have anyone representing this session on the call today, but we at least want to call it out as the fourth option for that session block Thursday morning. So we're going to open it up now for any questions you have from our three presenters before we move on to the last session block. I'm not seeing any questions in the queue, so if you do have one, oh, all right. So we do have a question here related to electric vehicle infrastructure. I want to see if Kevin, if you could see that, you want to just field that question.
Yeah. So the question is around the solutions and strategies we'll be sharing on EV infrastructure deployment. Do they apply not just in disadvantaged communities, but to broader sustainability outreach in harder to reach populations that might be present in a more well-resourced community? And the answer is absolutely. There's, the state's definitions of disadvantaged communities sometimes cover communities that, aren't primarily disadvantaged folks, and there's certainly low and moderate income or other harder to reach individuals in communities that aren't identified and disadvantaged. Identified under the state goals for disadvantage. So yeah, we definitely want to talk about kind of outreach and engagement strategies to reach hard to reach folks in all types of communities, whether they have a state disadvantaged designation or not. And there's funding programs that are geared geographically disadvantaged communities, and then there's also funding programs geared towards low and moderate income or affordable housing that could be located anywhere, and we'll be touching on all of those.
Excellent. Any other questions folks want to post? I'm not seeing any. Well, let's move on to session block 4. This is on Thursday afternoon, starting at 1:30. And as was noted earlier, one of the sessions is related, kind of a building off of the TRC session, is the spirit of free ridership policy and the public sector. And we have Lou Jacobson from Redwood Coast Energy Authority to make his pitch on the session. Take it away, Lou.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Well, you probably won't speak, but here's why you want to come. We're going to have fun. So we have myself, we have Courtney, Rebecca, Brendan, Jordan, and if you don't know this group, well, you should, because why go to SEEC unless we laugh, chat, debate, and talk about something that is probably contentious. And what is that? It's public sector free ridership. If you come to this panel, we're going to answer questions like, what is this thing, free ridership? To build on that, how does free ridership policy impact program design and implementation? And how does free ridership relate to TRC? By the way, if you don't go to TRC for the rest of us, you should, because it's going to be awesome like our session. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, we're going to explore whether or not a public agency can actually be a free ridership in a publicly funded program, which, by the way, has been a very interesting question to pose over the last couple of months. And if you don't come to this session, you're never going to know why it's so interesting, because frankly, that's what we're going to be talking about. So don't miss out on this great conversation. You're going to find yourself right in the middle of a debate about something that's new. The public sector is new, and this notion of free ridership and how we apply free ridership to cost effectiveness tests is a relatively new conversation. So come to us, come to the session, and find out more about how you can engage third parties of the future serving the public sector so you can bring those services to your community. All right, all done. Thanks.
Thanks, Lou. Okay, so up next is Peter Asmus from Navigate Research. Peter's going to be diving into microgrids, local carbon reliability, and resilience. And Peter, thanks for joining us. Peter, if you are there, you are muted. You have to unmute yourself. We are not able to.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're live.
All right, thanks. Sorry about that. So yes, well, we're going to be talking about a really hot topic, and hot as in terms of wildfire threats. As probably most of the listeners know, this is a big issue here in California. The last few years, we've had a lot of power outages, and now we're actually going to be having preventative grid shutdowns, which already started occurring even though we're just in June. The fire season is stretching over a longer and longer portion of the year. So we're going to be talking about microgrids, which for those who don't know is this idea that you can still have energy, power, clean energy when the grid goes down. Traditionally, folks have relied on backup generators, often diesel. If these preventative grid shutdowns, which could happen 15 times a year in certain parts of the state, lasting 2 to 5 days, if we rely on those backup generators, we're really going to compromise some of our carbon goals. So the idea of the microgrid is you can use those solar panels. Most solar energy goes down when the grid goes down, unless you have a battery and unless you integrate it into a microgrid. So I'm going to be presenting some global statistics and then kind of zeroing in on California. We also have Margaret Bruce, who she and I have actually done some workshops together talking about microgrids. We have David Liebman from Sonoma County Junior College District, an interesting project there. And then Christine Houston, Port of Long Beach, trying to get to zero emissions, which means their electricity use is going to increase by 4 times, which means that they're going to be more vulnerable to grid outages. And so we'll be talking about that, but mainly what I'm going to be talking about is this concept of energy as a service, this whole idea that a lot of local governments might think, how can we afford these microgrids? Well, there is now a way to do it. I'm going to be talking about a project on the East Coast that was done in Maryland, where the local government paid zero money and lowered its emissions, helped meet its sustainability goal, is now protected against grid outages. And so that's what we'll be talking about. Like I said, some statistics, some real live examples, and a topic that's really going to be impacting critical facilities throughout the entire state.
Thank you, Peter.
Sure.
All right, next up is aligning municipal policies and actions with energy and carbon goals. And we have Alexa Miller, pitch hitting for Kathy Higgins from the New Building Institute. I do want to note, Alexi, you may need to unmute yourself or raise your hand so we can activate you, since you are listed currently as an attendee, since you're a new addition. So we'll go ahead and make sure we make you live here. And we see you raise your hand. But for some reason it's not allowing us to activate you. So we may need to come back to you. We can't get. So you know, we'll come back to that, and we'll move on now. Alexi, we'll come back to you after we do the next one. So Samantha Meza, you're up. So we're going to be talking about the tale of two cities. And go ahead, Samantha.
Hi, thank you, Leif. Yes, I am Samantha Meza with the Energy Coalition, and I'm going to be co-moderating a session along with my colleague Jake Anderson titled A Tale of Two Cities. So the idea for this session came about because here at the Energy Coalition, we have the opportunity to work with unique sets of cities through the implementation of two regional local government partnerships. So one partnership is a group of forward-thinking, really early adapting West Side LA cities, and the other is a dedicated group of North Orange County cities that are really paving the way for their region. So both of these groups have been very successful at implementing energy efficiency through the support of their local government partnership. But one thing that we've noticed as implementers is that the agency motivators that really fuel these cities to take action towards energy efficiency projects and initiatives has varied greatly on a regional scale. So therefore, we thought it would be interesting to sit down with a representative from each partnership to discuss reaching the diverse needs and values of their local government policy, constituents, and communities that really drive their city to take action. So we'll be sitting down with the City of West Hollywood. Robin Eason is their sustainability planner, and she's with our West Side Cities group. And then we'll also be talking with Josh Solis, and he is the Public Works Administrator, Administrative Manager for the City of Orange, and will be representing our North Orange County partnership. So in addition to having a representative from LA and Orange County, we wanted to include representation from the IOUs who administer these programs. And we've invited Scott Mann, who's the program manager for both of our partnerships at Southern California Edison. So Scott's been working with partnerships over the past several years, and will offer the utility perspective on working with various regions who all have diverse priorities, but really the same goal of energy efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've done a little IT magic, and we hopefully Alexi's now been added.
I believe so. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Excellent. Take it away.
All right, here we are. So yeah, I'm Alexi Miller with New Buildings Institute. I put this session together, but my colleague Kathy Higgins, who is our research director, is going to be on site. She's very dynamic, and she'll do great, and she's deeply involved with our work. So just to give you a little overview of what this is all about, for several years now, our organization and a couple of partners have been engaged with small to medium-sized cities all around the country, from the West Coast all the way out to Michigan and Rhode Island, all over the place. Basically, what we're doing is finding cities that have set aggressive climate goals or energy efficiency targets, 80 by 2050, that kind of thing, but that don't necessarily have the best idea or the best roadmap to connect what happens in 2050 with the day-to-day operations of their municipal buildings. And so we've had support from Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance and the US Department of Energy to develop a framework of replicable tools and open source software tools, all kinds of resources, and a whole framework for cities to work within to connect those dots. Where are we right now? Where do we want to be in far down the future? So what we're going to present at this session is, here is the framework. We're going to turn you on to a whole bunch of tools, including one that's called the Local Governments Toolkit. So even if you can't come to this session, I encourage you to look at the Local Governments Toolkit. That is on the gettingtozeroforum.org website. If you Google Local Governments Toolkit, it's in there, although it's not the very first one. The very first one is some road network in Texas. But but you can find it, New Buildings Institute Local Governments Toolkit. There's lots of free stuff in there. And we're gonna have not just Kathy representing NBI, but Sharon Grant of EcoEdge, who is deeply involved with this project and has been building this framework with us for years now, as well as two presenters, Susan and Mike, as you see on the screen, with San Diego and Carlsbad, respectively, who are going to talk about their own experiences, both in achieving success in getting to zero or getting deep energy efficiency on a portfolio basis all across the city or county, as well as some of the challenges that they've run across and the lessons learned that they've received or come across, learned as a result of hitting these challenges. So please join us to learn about how this all works, how your city or organization, school district, county, whatever the case may be, can leverage all the work we've done and to find all these free resources.
All righty. That wraps up our pitches for the session block 4. We'll welcome any questions you have for our panelists. And if don't hear any, we'll just have a few closing words here. All right, I'm not seeing any questions, so we're gonna move it on. And I just want to briefly hand it over to our MC for the SEEC Forum, Helena Rim, and she's just going to say a few words about what to expect next week.
Hi, everyone. This is Helena at the Local Government Commission. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to all of the amazing moderators and speakers for our SEEC Forum who are going to be presenting during the breakout sessions. I'm really excited to see all these come to life next week. So thank you for providing your exciting pitch. I just wanted to do a quick reminder of the forum dates. We are starting next week on Wednesday, the 26th, at 1 p.m. With welcoming remarks, followed by the plenaries and breakout sessions up to the evening of Thursday, June 27th. We'll also have the Energy Champions Networking Reception on Wednesday evening, so be sure to register for that if you haven't already. And yeah, we'll have the registration desk open on both Wednesday and Thursday for you to sign in and get registered for the forum. And we're excited to see everyone there. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask them here or email me or call me directly. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Helena. Well, again, thanks everyone for joining us today. I really appreciate our presenters' enthusiastic pitches. There's some tough choices ahead about what sessions you all are going to attend. And thanks, Helena, for helping coordinate today's webinar. And we really look forward to seeing you all next week in Long Beach. Travel safe. Bye-bye.